But yes, there is obviously always challenges. With anything that is rewarding, there's always going to be a challenge on the other side.
Right.
And of course, you hear that and you see it, but to live it and to be in it as a business owner, that's, I think, where you either decide if you're going to succeed or not. Is if you're not able to manage your team in a way that is making them be fulfilled and be able to serve your customer, then it might not be the best business for you to be in. And unfortunately, sometimes you just don't know until you're in it.
Right.
So, but for me, yeah, it's been a journey. It's been my biggest lesson ongoing. I'm always learning about myself and about how to manage. There's no perfection. There's some days when I really screw up, and there's some times when I'm like, oh, I'm doing pretty good, so it depends on the day.
Hey there, it's Darren and welcome to the Small Business Big Idea Show. This is the place where you'll find the kind of inspiring, poignant, and thought-provoking interviews you won't find anywhere else. Why? Because I believe that entrepreneurs and small business owners, people just like you and me, have incredible stories to tell, but they often go untold. My goal is to help bring them to light so that we can all learn from each other and get better together. Now, if you're starting a restaurant or retail business, you're especially going to want to check out this episode. I sat down with Audrey Barron in her restaurant, Ezra's Enlightened Café, and she shared an amazing story of how she transformed an unused garage into a working commercial kitchen and cafe. Audrey also shares the ups and downs of building a team of employees, how she approaches work-life balance in a way that works for her and her staff, as well as some timeless advice for would-be entrepreneurs. Enjoy. Audrey, thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you're a chef, specifically a raw and vegan chef, correct?
Yes.
So is this something that you wanted to do from the time you were young, or is this something that happened later on, it sort of evolved for you and you came to it in a different way?
It was definitely an evolution, for sure. I always enjoyed making food. From the time I can remember, some of my earliest memories were in either enjoying food or as I progressed, making food for my family, friends, things like that. And the journey happened when I was in college and I started to realize my health was in decline. Mm-hmm. So, which I think is common for a lot of people when they get in, especially that first year of college, and there's just a lot of newness, being away from your parents that kind of help guide you, and
people start eating bad, taking on bad habits, things like that.
It's a slurry of, it's just like the perfect storm for for being unwell. So right. It happened to me, and so I was not eating well, I was not sleeping well, and I found myself getting sick, like really, really like hospital kind of, sickness that would, I'd need to go to the doctor and things like that. But also I was having chronic fatigue, body aches, I wasn't able to stay awake, I was getting sick a lot, and that really progressed through into my early 20s. And so I started to search and for what can I do to feel better, and at the
time
to
find an answer, looking for what else, what alternatives you can do.
And at the time, this is going to date me a little bit, but at the time the internet was just kind of getting going, right? So there wasn't like a Google, it wasn't like that. So, and what you were seeing on TV was like low fat, no fat, being skinny is the best, it was all, the goal was to be thin. It wasn't really talking about
how to be well, how to be healthy, right?
Right. So I'm sure those conversations were happening somewhere, but I wasn't hearing about it. So it took a while to get to that point. Well, I had learned that, eating plants can help with autoimmune disease. And I thought, well, if it can help with autoimmune disease, then it can probably help me with my issues. So I started to incorporate more plants into my diet and eventually became a vegetarian. And, months later, I took the leap to take dairy out of my diet, and that changed my life. And from there, it just progressed. I learned about the raw food movement. I was in corporate America at the time, and a light bulb came on, if you will, and I was like, okay, this is my time. This is my moment. I'm going to make the leap from leaving that security of the corporate world, that regular paycheck, and I went out to California to a awesome culinary school. And I learned to make healing food with the intention of coming back and sharing it with my community. I wasn't sure how that was going to take form. It started out with classes, and I ended up teaching classes for 6 years throughout our community and beyond, on teaching people how to make the food and how it benefits their health. So
Were you doing this full time at that
Okay,
point,
so
or were
at
you
the-
sort of transitioning
So at
a
the
little
time,
bit?
I was also a massage therapist and also focusing on women's health. So that was kind of an arm of my business, and then the other arm was teaching classes, consulting with people one-on-one. I was personal chefing a little bit, and so it was kind of all in the under the umbrella of well-being, holistic well-being,
Right.
and that's kind of how it started.
So it's a pretty, big step from doing that, which was already a big step coming from the
Right.
corporate world, to owning your own restaurant.
Right.
So how did you make that transition? What happened in your life to, that where you said, yeah, I really want to be a restaurant owner?
It's hard to pinpoint. I've had that question before, and it's hard to pinpoint that exact moment. The best recollection I have is honestly getting pregnant with my first child, Ezra, which is where the name came from for the cafe. As I started to literally grow life, I looked around at my community, and which I love dearly. And at the time, it was lacking in the realm of food that was healing, that you could go and just sit down and enjoy, a meal out. And knowing what I had known now through all my education, it's difficult just to go to a restaurant and know probably the oils they're using, and probably their food isn't
It's
organic.
like you know too much. You already
It's like
when you know
too
all
much.
this
Absolutely.
information, you want to. You want to maybe, you're thinking about starting your own thing and doing it different.
And you can't go back. Once you have that knowledge, you can't go back, which is the power of knowledge. That's why I'm so passionate about teaching, because that power of knowledge is great. So I looked around and I thought, there really isn't a place where I could, take my little one and I could have a smoothie and give them,
And don't have
share
to
the
worry
food
about
with
what's in
them,
it.
right? And then I thought, well, this is true for so many other people too. And at the time, the building we're in here now, there's an other side of the building that's at the time was like a holistic wellness space, and I worked there. I saw clients there as a massage therapist, and this space that we're in, the cafe, was the 2-car garage.
Wow.
And I would kind of make jokes with the people that I worked with. Oh, wouldn't it be cute if we had a little cafe? And
Right.
and we would kind of play and dream about it, but there was something, I can't tell you exactly what it was, but there's something that made me actually call the landlord and say, hey, could I get the keys to that garage? I'd love just to go in and take a look, right? And that's where, I went in and I stood in the garage and I looked around, and I just kind of, almost a meditation, if you will, and just kind of felt like, could something happen here? And
You started to envision it, started to think about it.
I started to envision it, and I felt the possibility. And then from there, it was just logistically, like measuring, figuring out, okay, with all the equipment we would need, could we fit it all in? Could we actually have a space?
Is it even possible?
Is it even possible
Right.
space-wise? And, I didn't know. I had never, honestly, the only experience I had in a commercial restaurant industry was being a waitress in college. So I had never been a cook in a commercial restaurant, anything like that. And so I really came at it from my very unique and naive perspective, right? Which I think served me. In some ways, it created, some difficulties in the beginning, to hurdles to
Right.
get over that people who maybe had worked in that industry would just automatically know. But in other ways, it has allowed us to really be extremely unique and come at it with our very unique perspective, just from that sheer
give you-
ignorance
yeah.
of how other places
You have a
do
fresh
it.
perspective, and I find a lot of people that do it that way. They're not bogged down by knowing something can't happen,
Right.
and so they go for it.
Yeah,
And
there's a beauty in that.
And so you'd mentioned that the restaurant Ezra's Enlightened Café is named after your son,
Yes.
Ezra. So in what ways does he inspire you, not only to create this space, but inspire you to do what you do here in your restaurant?
It's everything, honestly. It's bringing a child into the world, and the extreme weightiness of that, and all that entails, as far as what they're going to need to be the person they are in life, is a lot, right? Every parent feels that. I know you're a parent too, so
Right.
it's a thing. You think about it all the time. So the biggest thing is just him learning how to nourish himself. Obviously, we do that at home. So we're cooking at home. He's learning at home how we eat, and we're explaining to them, okay, here's how you take care of yourself so you don't get sick, and so that you're strong and you're healthy and you have all those things. But I think him seeing me run a restaurant
As he grows and
as
really
he
watches
grows
you
and watches,
do it, yeah.
I mean, it remains to be seen how that's going to affect him, but I can only imagine that there's hopefully some empowerment there for him, especially because I'm a woman, and and he's seeing his mother, do this, and
create something.
yeah, it's hard to come by, at least in our city, not only a woman restaurant owner, but who is also the chef, and so my hope is that that will maybe inspire him, and of course since then we've had another child, so I have a daughter now too.
Right.
So my hope is that my work will inspire them somehow, but it remains to be seen how that's going to be. Yeah.
And in the last 10, 15 years especially, we've seen this explosion with awareness around being vegan, eating raw, gluten-free, of course. I mean, a lot of this has been around for a long time, but you really see it nationwide and around the world expanding in the last 10, 15 years especially. How do you think, do you see that happening now? Do you see it, is it leveling, and that includes Indianapolis here. Do you see that leveling off at all, or do you see that continuing to grow here locally with your business? Is there, is it tapering off of people like, okay, I know about being vegan, do people see it that way and are kind of brushing it off, or do you still see a lot of growth and people still discovering it for the first time, or being interested or curious and wanting to learn more about it?
Oh, great question. So from the time we opened, I feel like that was where the wave was just coming up, right?
Right.
And we're kind of getting to the top of that wave right now, and it remains to be seen how far that wave's going to go up. But I feel like we're still kind of there's a lot of momentum with this, especially in our city. So places on the coast, right? They've been well aware of eating plants for well-being, right? In the Midwest, it's taken us a little bit to get here, but it's happening, and so you're seeing it happen. You're seeing the term vegan even on mainstream media, and so that's an indicator for me. When you see it on like the Today Show or whatever, then it's reached mainstream.
Right.
And so for how long it's going to be there, I'm not sure, but I think that the sticking point is when people actually try it. And I do want to make a point here, like I'm not really one for labels, even though we've had to label our cafe so people understand what we do.
Right.
I'm not interested I don't care if you're vegan, or that's not my goal to make the world vegan or anything. It's for them to understand the healing power of plants so that they can fit that into their life however it makes sense for them, because there is a true healing power, and there is a place and a time for veganism in everyone's life. I think just taking meat out of your diet, at least for small periods of time, is extremely healing, and I've experienced that myself. But I just want to say, for anybody watching this, you don't have to be vegan to really get the benefits and the power out of that.
Now, when you're a restaurant owner, a business owner, you're responsible for everything. I mean, there's so much you have to do. There's the finances, there's the marketing, there's the customer service. But one of the big steps is managing people.
Right.
For some people, it may be the first time that they've done it, or it may be the most people that they've ever managed.
Right.
How did you make this adjustment when you did it?
Oh gosh, it's been probably the biggest my biggest personal challenge, and the absolute biggest joy and pleasure that I get out of running this business is the people. The people that work for me, I genuinely come to love them like family, because they are, you see them, you walk in, there's just a sense that I get when I walk in and I see these people working in my cafe to serve our customers. It just gives me joy every single time. Like it's just a ongoing source of joy. And so what I've done, and I don't know, of course I don't know how other people do it, but what I've found is when I focus on my team and I give them the respect and the love that I can give from myself to better themselves and to be able to do their job to the best of their ability and have a working environment that is pleasant and safe and fun and a place where they can learn, then it makes me feel good, and from what I can tell, it makes them feel good too, and it makes them want to do a better job. It makes them want to serve the customer with a smile, because they feel better, and they see that it's good for business. So I don't think that there's a perfect answer. Yeah, I think everybody's going to find their own way as far as managing a team, and it's ongoing. It's always changing, because they're human beings. They're different. So as you bring in a new person,
the dynamic can change a little bit,
shifts
and you got
a little bit, right? And that's the fun That's the fun of it. So, but yes, there is obviously always challenges. With anything that is rewarding, there's always going to be a challenge on the other side.
Right.
And of course, you hear that and you see it, but to live it and to be in it as a business owner, that's, I think, where you either decide if you're going to succeed or not. Is if if you're not able to manage your team in a way that is making them be fulfilled and be able to serve your customer, then it might not be the best business for you to be in. And unfortunately, sometimes you just don't know until you're in it.
Right.
So, but for me, yeah, it's been a journey. It's been my biggest lesson, ongoing. I'm always learning about myself and about how to manage. There's no perfection. There's some days when I really screw up, and there's some times when I'm like, oh, I'm doing pretty good, so it depends on the day.
So we're sitting here right now in your restaurant, which, as you mentioned a minute ago, had a big transformation. This was basically a garage. So what was it like to transform this space physically into what it is now? How did, were there any big hurdles that you had to overcome, or as you're working through that, how did that evolve for you?
Oh my gosh, it was a long process. And it's funny, for how small this space is, it was like the amount of time, effort, energy, money that goes into it is always going to be more than what you project. So I'll definitely say that. Just the permitting process can take a long time. So that definitely, we had a goal we had planned to open up more like spring of 2014. It ended up being like late summer because of the permitting process and waiting on the city.
Everything took a little longer
to give us the okay.
Everything takes longer.
Yeah, everything takes longer.
It's like the old saying in business, everything, especially when you're an entrepreneur, everything takes twice as long and twice as much money than you originally think.
Yes.
It's just people, you think it's going to happen in a certain way, and it always, a roadblock happens.
Absolutely.
An obstacle happens. What were some of the big, so the permitting was obviously something you had to work through. That was a sort of a hurdle for you. Were there any other obstacles
there
or hurdles?
were just, I'm trying to think back, realizations about space, because our space is we call it Tetris in our kitchen. Like, we're always Tetrising, figuring out how we're going to fit this where. And so figuring out just the kitchen, honestly, because we're so small, how everything was going to fit, and not only fit, but actually be pleasurable to be in the kitchen.
Right, not horrible for people, not a bad working experience, right?
And so there's room for people to move and walk and everything. So, okay, so one thing I can say is our storage. I definitely did not take into account the amount of storage we would need as a restaurant, right? I mean, you think, okay, obviously you're going to need to store some things, but it just, as you grow, it keeps growing and growing. And that's a good thing, right? Because that means you're growing, but you need the space for storage. That's important. So yeah, I would definitely just say for anybody watching, plan for more time and more money and more effort than, maybe what your business plan allows for. So a cushion is always nice. A cushion of time, a cushion of money.
Absolutely.
So that when you do come up on those roadblocks, you're not super stressed out. You're like, okay, I knew this was going to happen. Let's roll with it, make it work.
Building the contingency, as we say.
Absolutely.
I understand that you have a small farm now.
Yes.
What role does that play in the larger vision of your restaurant?
This is really where my heart lies, honestly. When I years ago thought of the ultimate of what I wanted to do, a place for people to come and experience healing on different levels is what I envisioned, right? So the cafe is part of that. They can come, they can nourish their bodies, they can sit and be around like-minded people, they can take classes. When we found the farm and we were able to start farming, it was kind of the completion, I feel like, of that vision. So obviously the full circle of growing the food and then bringing it into the cafe, and then beyond that we actually compost our food scraps from the cafe, and then it goes back to the farm. Back
so you feel like
the
you're
soil.
full circle, trying to complete that circle.
Absolutely, and that feels really good.
When you found the farm, were you specifically looking for one, or did you happen to find this land and then it sort of all fit into place for you?
I honestly feel like it was extremely. There was some things working for us.
Yeah, sort of all came together.
Higher powers at work there. So my husband and I actually were looking for a new home because we knew we were looking forward to having a second child, and our house was kind of getting feeling a little smaller, and we thought, well, let's start looking and seeing if we can take that next step up in getting a larger house. And we were ready. We found the house. We were making steps towards purchasing it. I mean, it was days away from making that choice. And my husband found this property that is literally 5 minutes from the cafe, 6 acres of land. which
That's a lot for
which
around
if you're-
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for around here with where we are, it's
right.
very rare to find that.
It's like urban farm,
It's
really.
yeah, and it was all wooded. And he said, I want you to go out and take a look at this. And I did. And the house that was there was like, it was deep in the woods. And I was like, is he crazy? What is he thinking? Like, and plus the house was tiny. And then I went out a second time, and I was like, wait a minute. And I really, it sunk in that this is something bigger. This is not necessarily where we're supposed to live. This is where we're supposed to expand our vision and our dream. We were able to remodel the home because my husband does that as a living. So we were able to do that. We Airbnb the house, which allows to bring in some revenue, to help pay for, the mortgage that is there for the land. And then we did clear about a half an acre of the woods and started a farm. So we are going into our third year now as we're speaking of the farm, and it's exciting just thinking about, what we're going to plant, and we're getting involved. I'm going to be showing the catalog to our team.
You're involving it more and more into what you're doing here.
Right, and deciding what we're going to grow. And beyond that, it's been really rewarding because we have volunteer days. So the community, anybody who's interested, they come out, they help us, and in return, everybody comes out for different reasons. Some people come out for just the fulfillment of being in nature. We give little, they get to come and have a free meal on us, and so some people do it for that. But for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. We're there, we're together, it's community.
In what ways is being a restaurant owner or a business owner different than what you thought it would be? And is it more challenging or more difficult in some ways, or more fun or more exciting? How is it different than what you originally thought?
So it's harder in some ways, and then there's sometimes when it has such an ease and a flow to it that I'm like, is this real? And I think it all comes down to the work that I've done to make it such that it works for my life, so I have that work-life balance, so that even when those challenges come up, we can move and groove with it, and we can go with the flow. That's important because you're never going to be without challenges. That's to make that your goal, you're never going to reach it, right?
No.
So you'll be constantly disappointed.
Right.
So the best way I found is to know that those challenges are always going to come up, and we should be ready for them. Not only in business, but you got to take care of yourself in your personal life too. So that's, you got to make sure that you're well nourished, which I've got that down obviously because we've got, the food available for myself and my family, but also just making sure you have the time, the downtime,
right,
that you're feeling good, that you're able to spend time with your family, so that way you don't start to resent your business, because that can be something that can happen. So, which is one of the ways I did that is as we close at 3 every day. So we've had over the years many times.
You kind of adjusted that a little bit?
We did at one time. We tried to, we closed a little earlier. We've also closed an hour later.
Okay.
We found our sweet spot at 3 o'clock. And that allows for everybody to have still light in the day when they leave. They can kind of have their evenings to themselves. So it's great for my team, and it's also great for me. And so that I'm not also managing a night shift, because I realized I couldn't be the mother and that I want to be, and also have that work-life balance.
Right.
And without work-life balance, for the place that we're running here, where we're helping people find healing and feel better, if I'm not feeling good, then how am I supposed to project that and to make this a business
to
that
your staff,
fosters
to your
that?
customers, right?
Absolutely.
So you have many years left of work ahead of you. You're a long way from being done, but many years from now, when you're retired and you look back at your life, you look back at your body of work, all the things that you've created, what do you want your legacy to be? How would you like to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who truly cared about people and actually put that my words into action. So I want to be the person that not only says, oh, I care about this or whatever, but I actually have taken action to make change for my community, to work with others to make change.
You
to
can look
help
back
people.
and see things that you actually did and
Absolutely,
work that
yes.
you've actually accomplished too.
Right. So the biggest thing is just helping people. I just want to do that, help people feel better.
What final thought or idea or piece of advice would you like to leave with a small business owner or an entrepreneur who might be listening to this right now?
Dreams are awesome. Like if you have something that is just like it's keeping you up at night, right? And you just keep thinking about it. You read about it. You travel to go find it. There's an indicator there that might be something that you could fashion a life around, a working life around. Be cautious though, that you want to do it in a way that it doesn't suck the joy out of it. So that's going to be different for everybody. I can't really give an answer on that, you know. The best way I found is to create a work-life balance. However that looks for you, so that your work is your work and your life is also nourished, you know, so you're nourishing both. For some people that's going to be it's going to be all in one, and for some people they're going to want to separate it. That's fine, whatever works for you, but that work-life balance is important. And then always knowing that it's probably going to cost more money, it's probably going to take more time, and there's probably going to be more challenges and hurdles than what you projected, so just be ready for that.
Audrey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Take care.